Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of the Plant Sumo podcast. I'm your host Rachel, and today I have two incredible people with me, the vegan Voyagers, Aaron and Hayden. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited
Yeah,
to be here.
yeah, of course. I'm literally so excited because I'm really passionate about travel and food myself, and just your entire story, like a couple who you sold like so much of your stuff to kind of live this like nomadic lifestyle of traveling and trying new vegan food. I think it's awesome. I think you're awesome.
Thank you. Well, we can't wait to share our story with you guys.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, before we get into everything you've been up to, I mean, I believe you're in Mexico at the moment. I'm just really curious. How did you guys meet? Like, did you meet and you were both vegan and really into travel, or was it just like a coincidence? I'm really curious.
So we actually met working for Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. Aaron had already been living up on the San Juan Islands in Washington State. That's where the headquarters were at the time. And I got a job there and we met, and I pretty much said, this is the guy, I found him. So, we already had a shared love of obviously the ocean and marine conservation, and we were both vegan. So that really helps, all of our morals and everything combined. So
yeah, that's so lovely.
After the fact.
Yeah, it almost feels like destiny, like fate or something that
Really
you guys were brought together. Yeah.
a lot of moving pieces to put us in the same place at the same time, but
yeah, especially given our backgrounds, you being from Los Angeles, I'm from the Midwest, so
oh my god,
little tiny island in Washington is just kind of an incredible twist of fate, essentially.
yeah. I mean, being from the UK, I sometimes forget how massive America is, so that's a real feat. You should be proud of yourselves. Like I mean, speaking of conservation, I mean, naturally, I'm sure for both of you, that's something that hugely motivates your veganism, right? The kind of moral aspect of that. I mean, I was watching on your YouTube what you've been up to in Mexico and what you've been doing with turtles there. And I just thought that was really cool. Like, would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so that was a huge bucket list for me, or bucket list item for me, because we have this huge shared love of respecting animals and the environment and the planet. And as soon as we found out that there was the opportunity to rescue baby sea turtles, we were chomping at the bit. Like, we were going to do that no matter what it took.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most incredible experiences that I think either of us have ever truly had, because you're put yourself in this situation where you really are the last line of defense for some of these turtles that, suffer so much through predation, whether it's animal or human. And, so you get in there and some of these nests are 1 to 2 meters deep. And so you're digging sand just way out of there.
Gosh.
And pulling these little tiny babies out that wouldn't have made it to the surface and wouldn't have had a chance at life. And it's just this incredible, powerful, moving, emotional feeling to know that that turtle has a chance because of the actions that you took. And I think that drives a lot of what we do in general, is just try to save as much and rescue as much of the earth as we can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think firstly, that's so heartwarming, and that's incredibly sweet and really beautiful, like being able to have that kind of experience and know, like, even if it's only on like a micro level, that you are, saving life, helping animals, stuff like that. But I think so many people, they don't appreciate enough, especially when it comes to lifestyle changes, the impact that you do have, even though it may be small, right? Like, just saving one life alone, obviously it's not going to like completely change the current situation, but you've had some effect on that ecosystem. And at the end of the day, it's something to, be proud of, I think.
Yeah, and it's, it changes the world for just that one animal, and it makes it important to us. So, every little bit helps, and every little bit that we can do as individuals really does go a long way, even if we don't realize we don't see that impact. It really is making a difference.
Also,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
effect, when you talk about going vegan, you at first you're the typical vegan where it's like, everything vegan all the time.
Yeah.
And as it continues on, you start to notice that people are coming to you with questions like, how do I replace some of my meals? How do I do this? And even, my parents living in the Midwest, it's very much a meat and potatoes area, but now my mom is entirely vegetarian and she's gotten my dad off of beef. So like, just the little cascading effects that you can have by some of these small actions really add up to massive change in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also having that sort of knowledge, right? Because there are so many people who would happily experiment with a plant-based diet and they care about the moral reasons, but they don't know where to start. And when you've made those minor kind of changes yourself, like you said, passing them on to other people, you are having a significant impact on your own communities and your own lives. And it, again, I keep saying this, but it's something to be proud of,
And there's just so many different types of activism too. Like I worked for PETA as a campaigner, and so standing on the street corner wearing a lettuce bikini might not be for everybody. That's not necessarily the only way to make a difference. And so just every single person has an entire network and community of people that they can be influencing, like on a more micro scale. And those changes really do add up to really big impact. So, I think a lot of people are like, oh, vegans are all these crazy people on the streets and you're testing and this, that, and the other. And that's a great form of activism, but it's just not for everyone. And that's not the only way to make impactful changes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you were just saying about people thinking about vegans as if, I don't know, they're like these sort of crazy individuals, right? When like there are vegans all across the planet, every culture, every society. But obviously we don't typically get that kind of representation in the media or in terms of travel for people to be conscious of that and aware of that. And I think that's why what you two are doing, traveling around, showing these options and showing that it is completely possible to be vegan in other countries like Mexico, which I think a lot of people would presume, I can't go vegan there. Do you get what I mean? I couldn't find the options.
And that's really our goal through Vegan Voyagers, through our YouTube channel, is that we just want to show people that it can be easy and it can be really inexpensive a lot of times to be vegan pretty much anywhere in the world. And while we've only really made it through Mexico due to the pandemic, we kind of got derailed with our travel plans. But we're finding vegan options in places that you would never expect them to be. And so even in the United States, so before we started our world travels, we traveled through the United States for 3 years in an RV. And so you're in the middle of a state that you would never expect to have a vegan restaurant, let alone vegan options anywhere. We're in North Dakota eating in a vegan restaurant. And so just in the 10 years that I've been vegan and having traveled doing activism work, I've seen just huge strides in the movement and just in the options and availability for people. So, I can see it for myself, the changes that are happening. It's really it's amazing. It's inspiring. So
yeah, I had a coworker many years ago that said, "Oh, I'm vegan except when I'm traveling." And it always kind of stuck with me. I was like, well, what is it about traveling that changes your perspective and changes your availability? And so when we started talking about doing this whole thing of, traveling in the US first, international travel now, that's always been one of my driving motivating factors is I kind of want to just prove that person wrong. Like you can and be 100% vegan and still have the same amazing experiences and cultural experiences that non-vegans would. And it's super easy to do.
And outside of
a resource for people. You know, we do these vegan food tour videos in what are pretty much major cities. So like Mexico City, wouldn't expect to be a huge major vegan mecca, but it was. There are thousands of vegan restaurants. We had no idea. But also there's really good resources like the Happy Cow app and a billion veg app. And they basically will show you the vegan options in any location around the world. So it's been a huge resource for us to use that, because we can be pretty much anywhere and pull up the app and it says, oh, there's vegan options within 10 miles of you. And so just these types of technological advances have really helped to spearhead the movement, and it really does help dispel the you can't be vegan and travel myth that people think of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so cool. I literally had no idea apps like that exist, and it just shows a lot.
Like, I don't know how people live without it.
We were just kind of laying around, wrapping up our night, and we were just putting it to the test. Like, what was the most random places we could think of? And we were like pulling up Uzbekistan, and sure enough, boom, vegan restaurants.
Smallest country in the world, I think, is Eritrea, and there's vegan options there. So it's just, there really is no excuse for people not to go vegan, because, and that's really, you know, what we're trying to show people. And it's fun, and the food tastes good. It's not just us eating whatever, salads, you know, lettuce. To be honest. So like, we think it's so fun to show people the food that we find, and obviously we have a lot of fun eating it. So that's just one of our major driving forces behind what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it is literally just that mental block of, oh, veganism is an added difficulty, right? You know, it's a handicap when I travel abroad. I'm going to have to be constantly thinking about it, but you literally don't. That's insane that countries that small, you can find vegan options anywhere, literally anywhere on the planet. Oh, have we frozen a bit?
We froze. We're back.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, have you guys had enough? Have you just signed off? Like,
done here.
Oh, well, I was about to ask, actually, you were talking about how, you know, incredibly delicious a lot of the food you've tried. And I mean, this is a podcast that's supposed to be about food. We haven't even discussed it yet. What would you say is the best thing you've had so far in Mexico?
That's a really hard question. I know immediately what mine is. So I'm obsessed with mole, which is a typical Mexican sauce. It's made out of chocolate, and it's kind of an acquired taste, but I'm obsessed with it. And in Mexico City, there's a restaurant called La Pitaya Vegana, which is dragon fruit is La Pitaya. And so they have their tortillas are all pink, which is really good for Instagram. But they have this delicious, like a plantain stuffed like enchilada with mole sauce. So you get the sweetness from the plantains and the bananas with the like kind of bitter chocolate mole sauce. And it was
sounds
just
amazing.
Incredible flavor combination I've ever had. And it just, you would never find that in the States, because it really is like a traditionally Mexican dish. And that's what we like to do, is highlight these Mexican, or, you know, the local dishes that are veganized, and just show people that you can still have that cultural experience. You're not missing out because you have to choose a vegan option.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I could pick a single dish. Like, we've hundreds, and it's funny, everywhere we would go, it's literally, we would say, this is the best insert whatever we're eating we've ever had in our life. But probably the new dish that I had no idea existed, that we now eat on a fairly regular basis, was molletes. And that is toast with refried beans and sometimes some cheese, pico de gallo, avocado, and it's like avocado toast on steroids. And it's
oh wow.
and filling, and
it's so simple, but we also had really like elaborate versions of it. So in Mexico City, there was this gorgeous giant baguette that had like soy rizo potatoes, and it had the cheese and the cream sauce and beans, and it's just such a simple dish that can either be simple or really made into like an elaborate gourmet meal. So that's a good one. Molletes.
Just listening to that, literally, like, just listening to that, like, literally, my mouth is watering. Like, honestly, millennials. So the avocado, I was like, should I book a flight?
And being in Mexico is that, you know, avocados are local and they're plentiful and very cheap.
Yeah. And I think what you said as well about, taking that sort of inspiration from traditional Mexican cuisine as well is literally so important, right? Because I think with so much of vegan cooking, like the cultural influences do tend to come out of the West. Because I'm thinking specifically of like Indian food, for example, where you have a lot more options that can be more readily made vegan, and they rely more on sort of fresh, natural ingredients, like a lot of vegetables and stuff. So yeah, I think that sort of like experimenting and moving into like different cultures and cuisines, and just the fact you guys have this kind of platform and you're opening up so many people's minds to, like I've never really tried any Mexican food, definitely not any traditional Mexican food. Like I had Taco Bell once, but yeah. Yeah, I just
through Mexico, and like I said, we've only really made it through here, but we want to find the traditional dishes in every country. So one that comes to mind is the country of Georgia, and they have khachapuri, which is not a vegan dish at all. It's like a bread baked with cheese and eggs and everything in it. We've had a vegan version in Los Angeles, but that's the kind of dish that we want to find when we go there. So who's making the vegan version of the traditional like country dishes that people, so we don't miss out on the cultural aspects of travel.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, once you have those kind of options there, it's not only great for vegans who just want to go abroad and experience different cultures, but also like meat eaters, right? Who are like, oh, I can't enjoy the things I typically would. I mean, no one likes the idea that we have to, like slaughter animals to enjoy protein and enjoy meat. I think that's true for almost everyone, right? It's just to do with the flavor. So when it comes to things like meat substitutes and dishes, which in terms of flavor like replicate like meat versions the closest, I think you could see like a serious change in terms of people moving towards veganism once we have more of those options. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I've always said that if you take the animals out of meat, I'd go back to being a meat eater. Because I do like those textures, I do like those flavors, but ethically, I'm not willing to have an animal be killed or even suffer for my own pleasures, So there's been this huge boom and huge movement behind getting products that are very similar in texture and taste. And, you see it across the United States with like Beyond and Impossible trying to get to that point. But even down here in Mexico, there's such a cool movement with a lot of these vegan restaurants where they have, traditionally meat-based dishes that they've veganized, like suadero, pibil, they're making chorizo out of soy curls, and you're able to get all of those flavors and all those textures without any of the animal products. So even if you are a meat eater, if you just go into it with a little bit of an open mind, you're going to get all of that same really local, authentic taste and flavor without any of the actual death of an animal, and it's going to be healthy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
The products have come so far in the last just couple of years that, a lot of people are actually eating vegan dishes, not even realizing that it is a vegan dish. They think that we all just eat like plain tofu out of a package, but you can eat an entire burger and not know that it wasn't an animal. So I think the technology that we've put into food creation is really going to be like the driving factor for how the world starts to move to a more plant-based world, because it's more sustainable and, it's obviously better for people's health and everything like that. So, and the animals don't suffer. So it's kind of just a win-win. And if people don't miss the flavor and taste, and it's not like this weird, gross, chewy, like tofu burger that people didn't want to eat in the first place, then they start to come around. And even just eating it a couple of times a week or replacing it a few times when you sit down to eat. And that's why Meatless Mondays are such a great, way to get people to just start thinking like, I can eat a plant-based meal instead of a meat-based one. And it really does make a difference, because they'll start to change their habits over time. So
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree about like people who are more like flexitarian, right? Where they kind of go in and out of veganism, because I think it's marketed as like one day you like become a vegan and then like that's it. Do you get what I mean? Like you can't slip up, or it's
that
like a
happens that way, but in reality, that's not how it works for most people.
yeah, like it's not, you know, it's not like a moral failure, right? If you like, you know, ended up eating some meat again. Like for most people, like your diet, it's such a huge thing to change because it's so intimately connected to your sort of like emotional comfort and your sense of security and all these sorts of things, that I just think it's good to cultivate a sort of environment where obviously we're like, here's a plant-based diet, here are the incredible benefits of being on one, but you know, if you go in and out of that kind of lifestyle, like that's fine, you know, no one's going to come to your house and be like, how dare you, you know.
And you don't let the strive for perfection be the death of progression. Like even, you know, vegans and activists and everything, you know, we strive for this utopia, and that is obviously the end goal. Like we want, you know, realistically 0 animal products in the world. That would be the utopia. But people get so hung up on that level of perfection that they start shooting down any progress towards that. And I think that does more harm to the animals than any good.
Yeah, people need to think about these things in terms of like incremental change, right? Because like such a massive change, like seeing a society in which, you know, vegans, I was about to say vegans dominate, but isn't really what I mean, where, you know, a plant-based lifestyle is the mainstream diet. Obviously it's going to take time. And I think with a lot of the environmental factors that we see happening, like the intensification of climate change, for example, like what's been happening recently, I believe in Oregon, has kind of scared me, yeah, as well. So hopefully that will open more people's eyes to, you know, the way our climate is going. And obviously animal farming has such a massive impact on that, and it needs to be more discussed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and especially with everything that's going on with this pandemic right now, it's all started through animal markets and through the consumption of meat. Like, you know, one of our best posts that we've had go crazy recently was we shared a photo that says no pandemic started because of tofu. Like even just realizing that the consumption of meat is leading to, like you say, you know, with climate change, but also the current situation that everybody's in right now. Like if we were in a plant-based society, the odds of this happening are very small.
Yeah, exactly. Like actually, that's a really good point about coronavirus that really not enough people discuss, that it literally did come out of these wet markets in which animals were being, you know, like slaughtered essentially. And I think just thinking about our health in relation to that, like the benefits of going to a plant-based diet compared to, you know, being on a meat-based diet are just very well documented. And I think not even just in terms of, you know, spreading disease and all that kind of stuff, we can just think about those benefits to our wider health holistically as a society.
Absolutely. And I think also one of the major misconceptions is people think, oh, you know, wet markets are only happening in China, or it happens across the sea. Like that's not my reality, but there's wet markets in New York City, and people just don't necessarily understand that, you know, the way we raise animals and the way that we make them interact with the animals that they're not supposed to. So it was like a bat that interacted with a pig, and then a human ate the pig. And so it's just, everything is so unnatural about the way we eat food. And so that has, you know, clearly taken a huge toll on, you know, a lot of people's health, and clearly the environment is suffering immensely because of it. And, you know, the Amazon rainforest is burning at intense rates right now, and it's because of cattle farming. So it's they're grazing, or they're raising soy to feed cows instead of just even feeding the soy to human beings. So like if we can feed that many billions of farm animals, we should be able to feed that many billions of human beings. And instead we choose to make this middleman that doesn't build all the same caloric needs that humans need in order to survive. It's so counterintuitive and backwards. and people just, and in response, they'll just say, oh, bacon, I like bacon. And it's like,
yeah. Yeah, what you said there about the whole food process being so broken down into these specific steps where you're completely isolated from the actual process of, killing the animal, converting it into meat and stuff like that. Like, you buy a chicken breast from the supermarket and you would never like think of that as being a living creature. It's such a sort of product, just the like entire environment that we think about food in. I think that's so true. And I did not realize that at all about New York. And it just shows how we have literally been like raised, cultured by the media just to think about these things as happening somewhere else, some other distant country. And once you travel, as well as living in countries like America and seeing it yourself, you just realize that completely isn't true.
Right. Yeah. And, even the, like the pig farms that are in North Carolina in the United States, they're a huge detriment to the communities who live there. And it's actually, lower income, mostly people of color who are affected by these practices. So like, it's all interconnected. And so, just if you want to just go and eat a chicken breast or eat a piece of bacon, you don't realize the impact it's having on human beings, like communities who are suffering. They have like asthma. They basically spray poop through the air and it infects, it just spreads hundreds of miles in the air. And so people just don't know that, and they don't really care because it doesn't affect them, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think if people had to actually go through the process of basically hunting, killing, breaking down animals into their own meat, I think we'd have a lot more vegetarians in this world, because it's pretty intense. When I was in Japan, in Taiji, the dolphin slaughter, like I actually saw the whole process of live animal get captured in the cove, get taken off to the meat markets where it was butchered down, and then later that day they were packaged up in the supermarkets. And it's a very intense thing to witness and really wrap your head around and realize that this is happening all over the world and happening everywhere. And people are so disconnected from their source of food that they just think it somehow magically humanely shows up in the supermarket and they're doing it, they're buying it.
Yeah, you become just so desensitized to the process, because obviously it's not publicized. You don't really see it in the same sort of way. Like, it's never really represented to you. And I think what you said there about actually the level of exploitation of people, especially people of color, that is involved in keeping, these large scale farming operations and just the entire meat industry going effectively is really interesting, because obviously there is this whole cultural narrative, right, that veganism is only for the privileged. It's this very white thing. It's this very Western thing. And obviously through discussion of this and just through traveling to other countries, and you see the local communities, like I know you went to a specific festival in Mexico, actually, believe it's called the Playa de Carmen Festival. And it just shows, these local communities are vegan, they care about these same sort of issues. So this sort of binary notion that somehow veganism is only the product of, these very elite Western white people, it's just, it's deconstructed when you experience these sorts of things, I think.
Yeah, there's actually a really large or a growing number of people of color who are becoming vegan because they realize that animal agriculture and eating meat is affecting their health in the worst way. So the majority of people around the world are lactose intolerant. And also it goes into, they're the communities who are being the most affected. So they live in food deserts where they don't have, a Whole Foods on their street corner. And unfortunately, they have to rely on McDonald's because that's what they can afford to feed their family. And it's just the cheap processed meat. And they're seeing the benefits of how eating fresh food, and everybody in the world should see the benefits of doing that, and how access to fresh food and vegetables and fruits, really makes an impact on entire communities of people. And so there's a really amazing growing community of people of color who are becoming vegan and starting to make it more not just a white thing. And so we're just so happy that that's the case, because
nobody wants to hear a white preachy vegan telling other people around the world what to do. And so it's just great that the voices are being amplified and, in other spaces that we don't have access to.
Yeah, I think what you said about lactose intolerance, sorry, is a particularly good point, because I think a lot of people don't actually realize, that the extent to which a lot of other countries are using animal products like milk, like cheese, like eggs, is, significantly less than we do here in the West. And that actually got me thinking about like the Western diet in particular, and what you were saying about fast food, and how I can't help but find it rather strange that a lot of the companies which are pioneering these vegan options and like all running to get them onto their menus are fast food chains. Like you yourself have tried the recent Whopper, I believe, like the new vegan Whopper. And I think McDonald's has got some new vegan options here, but it's literally these same industries which have such a detrimental effect on so many people's diets. Like they literally create the culture and the sort of economic situation. Well, at very least they're responding to it, right, through making all their products very cheap, where people are living these kinds of unhealthy lifestyles and relying on that sort of food. But at the same time, they're opening the culture up more to veganism. I just find that interesting.
That's like a catch-22.
I was just going to say, excuse me. I have a love-hate relationship with that, because I love that, like McDonald's is doing this and Burger King's doing this, all these other
KFC,
fast food restaurants.
tenders.
Yeah, they're exposing these vegan products and these plant-based products to the world, but there's still, there's a part of me that's like, I can't give them a free pass, because they've got one or two products where 80% of their income is based off of the suffering of animals. So we will often go out and try the food, test it out, explain it, show that this is an opportunity for people that maybe are traveling, and it's easy to hit a place like that. But we definitely don't advocate that you consistently go there and eat there.
But it is opening up to the people who do live in food deserts an option to eat a vegan burger instead of a meat-based one. And so it's really not about the white vegans who have a Whole Foods on their street corner. Like that's not who the market is. Like it's, and they're the ones who are going to criticize that the most, because they're like, well, I don't eat that and I would never give them my money. But really in the end, it's like we live in a capitalist society, and there really is no way to be 100% ethical, like working in the system that we're in right now. And so we just think that any move towards a plant-based product, especially with a huge, corporation like McDonald's, is a step in the right direction. And yes, they're still going to make money, and yes, they're still, harming animals at ridiculous rates. And why should we support that company? But we should be supporting anyone who wants to offer a vegan option, because it's opening up the door to people who wouldn't have had that option otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what you said about there really is no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? Because the clothes we wear are just alone, most of which are made by literal slaves, but don't want to get too intense, for the podcast. But
one of the arguments is that like the sustainable products are really expensive, and so they're just not as widely available to the masses, and that might be true, and but it still doesn't mean we shouldn't be making those products. Like, so it's just a catch-22. It's like, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like,
yeah, exactly. So all you got to do is just travel and for a bit try to get away from all of the crushing awareness of all of the stuff.
Why we try to do a positive spin on things, where we're just like, you can look at all the really great food that we've found, and we just want to encourage people to try those products. Like, you don't have to be vegan to eat a vegan meal and enjoy it, because it's delicious.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, because obviously you guys, I'm assuming you want to travel the whole world, right? And find whatever vegan options you can. Yeah, incredible, amazing. Is there anywhere in particular that like you're really excited to go, that you think would be really fascinating to explore from a like plant-based perspective?
We're supposed to be in Germany right now,
Oh my
preparing for.
God.
We were going to do a whole Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, down into Africa trip this fall. Thanks, Corona. But I don't know that there's one particular place where I'm like, absolutely, that is the target. Specifically for food, for me, the targets that I choose, like the countries that I want to go to, are a lot of the cultural aspects of it, and then the food is kind of like, okay, what can we tie into? How do we experience? Like when we go to Scotland, which is where part of my family is from, you better believe I'm going to find vegan haggis somewhere. Like that is, I'm gonna find that. But yeah. What about you?
I don't even know. I want to visit it all, and I want to eat all the food. I think I'm most looking forward to visiting Africa, and specifically like Ethiopia. We love Ethiopian food, and just to be able to eat all those amazing flavors and see where they come from, all in like from the source, is I think where I don't know. It's just I want to see it all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys will. You've clearly got an incredible amount of passion and knowledge and experience when it comes to these things. And I mean, honestly, what can I say? I'm sure I've just sat here and rambled the entire time, but this has been amazing. I've really, really loved talking to you. And what can I say more than I wish you all the luck in the future? And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us. It was so great to meet you and to get to talk to your listeners. And we just hope people will be inspired to try more vegan food and to get out into the world and travel more. It's just what we want people to do.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, honestly, I'm pretty inspired myself. Like, I'm gonna go pack my suitcase and I can come up with new ideas of places to go. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the first ever episode with our incredible guests. Bye.